Today, we have a very special guest, John Lee. He's the CEO of Silver Elephant Mining and CleanTech Vanadium. But he has a deep understanding and keen insights into what is going on in the precious metal sector. We're going to focus more on silver today. John, welcome to Ron's Basement.
Great to be back, Ron.
Yeah, a lot going on since we last talked, John, on a geopolitical level, on an economic level. What do you make of the kind of the big picture right now that the silver and gold market are experiencing?
Ron, I recall when I came on the show last time with you, maybe about 6 months ago, silver, I think it's in the 50s or 40s or 50s, and we reminisced and both collectively sort of come to the conclusion that the next target for silver is 75, and that's on a linear scale and a log scale based on the cup and handle formation. It could be 120 to 150, and sure enough, we breached the 75 level with ease, and then went all the way right up to close to 120. And we also talked about, Ron, last time that the way of observing potentially a top in place. And that the cartels will sometimes help fuel the market to try to exhaust all the buying. I mean, obviously, if the prices are higher, then the purchasing power gets eroded. And it's my belief that when we saw in February, the price went from 120 to $75 in a span of 3 days. A lot of when silver went up over $100. It looked to me that the buying from 90s to 120 was almost entirely the works of the cartel, and try to create that FOMO. It's kind of like when you go to the night market, right? What I mean by that is, so when the day come, the cartel started smashing. You saw I literally saw that day. I remember very clearly that I went from 120 to 110, 110 to 100 to the 90s, and I thought, oh, maybe we should double into it, and they're saying, just wait for half an hour. You don't want to catch it full at night. And then went all the way to the 80s, and I think the close to the 80s that day, and then following day got hammered again down to low 70s. Yeah. It's kind of a bit of like a FOMO or the Chinese night market, right? They advertise, say, a lantern at 120, and then you thought like you can get it's a bargain at 90, and it went to 70s. Therefore, I wouldn't necessarily get caught up in thinking that, well, silver at 90 is a good deal, we should buy because yesterday was 120, and I think a lot of people got suckered into that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of casualties and people that actually ended up in the red, silver bucks because of FOMOs. Yeah. The there's really not a fair value for silver because it's measured in fiat, which is intrinsically worth nothing. So you can make a case for 1,000, 2,000, or 500. However, a great rule of thumb that I use is, as I started in 2000 when I started buying silver, when silver was $2.50 and the silver eagle was under $5, is that a silver coin ought to be able to afford you a decent 3 meals for the day. Like you should be able to get by for the day. That is a bit of a sort of just a natural equilibrium of relative relative valuation in terms of being as money. And that's come from hundreds of years ago, when if you watch Chinese kung fu movie on YouTube, and they play kung fu, they would go to a meal, and then they would take a little eggnog and place on the table for food, and that's kind of like the size of a coin, right? And you have wine, you have chicken, you have everything. So therefore, $75 is just not far off from where we kind of are, assuming there's not a froth in the market. Is sure enough, I mean, with the war happening, there's really nothing's frothy right now. If you look at the commodity complex across the board, like grains and natural gas and oil was 60 not so long ago. I prophesied that silver and oil is going to meet 2 months ago with my audience internally before silver takes out another leg. And sure enough, now oil has come back over silver again. So I think at $75 silver is not overvalued. And they look at the gold to silver ratio. I think it touched on 60, close to 60, or in the 40s, and now it's back to around low 60s. So as I mentioned to you before, in the modern days, that ratio hovers around 70. And one last point on silver is that, Ron, there's a lot of trends of thoughts. Is price action is all about collective human behavior.
Yeah.
So if you were to measure, if you were to overlap, which I started doing just a week ago, if we just start to overlap the price action of silver's price action of today from February to May of 2011, when silver topped at $50, and what has happened since then, if you just go sort of scan it through, kind of like a CAT scan,
right,
and you stack them side by side, lining the May of 2011, and I'm going to put up the charts on my Twitter later today.
Okay.
So lining the May 2011 silver top at 50 to the February silver top at 120, and then what has happened since then, the pattern is almost identical.
Wow.
And silver went from 50 to 33, bounced back to the 40s and back down, and then started oscillating. Just to give you sort of the summary on that, is that right now, if we're based on the pattern of 20, and interestingly, gold and the dollar also follows a very similar pattern back then to versus today. And so let me give you a summary of what is to come from that. Obviously, the curious, the inquisitive wants to know. Okay, John, so it's lining up. So what does the 2011 chart tells you? What's going to happen from now? If the 2011 chart plays out, the dollar is going to top within the next few days, maybe today, because the Fed is due to announce the Fed interest rates. So a lot of people are buying on the rumor, it will be selling on news. In that, it will be a hawkish stand, but will interest rates stay put. If you look at Australia, where they start hiking interest rates, we're embarking on interest rate hiking cycle. So the news is a lot of factor in. So if the 2011 pattern is being followed, is to be followed today, and we can go back to maybe 3 or 6 months from now when I come back to your program. So this is my prediction, just be upfront.
Yeah.
Instead of having to digest through the entire interview, is that the dollar is going to top in the next few days. Gold is also going to bottom in the next few days, and silver is going to bottom as well within the next 5 days.
Okay.
However, silver is going to be consolidating at 60 to a $95 level. Again, if we were to go back to what has happened back in 2011, and then gold eventually is going to be steadily go up and down, start to take out the $5,200 level to approaching on 6,000. So that means that gold to silver ratio is going to start to ascend one more time.
Yeah.
And we can see a lot of reasons. I think gold is not going to have a crazy action because of the uncertainties, the draining of the liquidity, and also the geopolitics. There's just not a liquidity around, so there's not a lot of leverage to double down on gold. And silver is going to be hovering at this level for the remaining of the year before actually breaking down based on the 2011 guidance. And part of that is just not a lot of speculative capital around. In times of uncertainty and war, gold usually prevails. And it's only when there is greed that silver prevails. So then if you look at sort of not get suckered into all this counter rallies in a bear market, at least in the interim, you sure don't want to buy a market that is topped and then with succeeding lower highs, right? Which is what we're witnessing right now.
Right.
And so therefore, if it plays out as was 14 years ago, then you're going to see silver sort of going at lower highs with the $70 as a base level. But I think the reassurance, however, is though gold is going to continue to go up because inflation, because uncertainties, and the real physical buyer going to continue to step in at these levels. And that technically speaking, gold is goes 50-day moving average is at 5,000. So it's imperative that gold resumes above 50-day moving average, because if gold is stay below 5,000 for extended period of time, that could signal a intermediary top for all the commodities in the next potentially 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. So you're thinking that we're going to have a succession of lower highs and silver consolidate in kind of the 65 to 70, 95 range. And that's for what time frame? Like maybe over the next year? This year.
Next 6 months.
Okay.
For the next 6 months.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we weren't talking, a decade or anything like that. What do you see? Well, let me back up because I want to get a long-term idea from you what you see with silver. I want to clarify one thing. When you were talking about the dollar earlier, you were referring to the DXY index.
Correct.
and how it behaves. Okay, thank you. It does feel like. Do you think there's a chance over the next year that the Fed could actually raise rates?
Yes.
You do. Okay.
The chance of hiking rates is a lot more probable than lowering rates.
Yeah.
A lot of people were betting they're lowering on the treasuries and thinking that the Fed is going to come rescue it as always does. Remember the days when oil is 120, the Fed just wanted to raise the interest rate from 2%, and they said inflation is transitory. And when there's a missile fire in North Korea across the Japanese Sea, and then they immediately lower it. There's a whiff of banking crisis, they lower. But now everybody is like talking about, even though oil is 60, there was no lowering of interest rates, and now oil is at 100. Certainly, there's a lot more reasoning for hiking of interest rates, as Australia has done just 3 days ago. Yeah. And it's not to, I'll be clear, I don't even track the employment numbers or CPI. All this is fudged. It's all about the manager, right? The boss that be, the guys behind the scenes on achieving the 2030 agenda, which is all nothing and be happy, and wiping out the middle class. So the entire world was been on a binge of fiats with ultra low interest rates to try to be fed morphine to try to create that demand for fiats, because when you borrow a dollar, you have to pay back. So that is a demand for dollar and all fiats per se. And now it's coming home to roost. From 2011, you're going to see that trajectories of rising interest rates to fit into the agenda of maximizing and exerting maximum pain to the middle class, to having to pay back the debt by liquidating their real assets.
Yeah, and it's interesting, not to get into too deep of a conversation about the Fed and macroeconomics, but it feels like they may almost have to raise interest rates also to entice anyone to want to own the debt. Does that play into this at all?
You know what? Yes and no, Ron. We also run a fund, the Oracle Commodity. We got about close to $5 million under management. We made a lot of money on oil. We made a lot of money on silver. Millions, but we choose not to participate in the currency market or in the bond market. The reason I say that is because you're betting on the synthetics. When you're betting the dollar over the euro, well, it's the sort of, let's just call it the manager. It's right hand versus left hand, right? Because they have a pretty much on the euro, they have pretty much on the dollar. Yeah. Same on the bond. I mean, when 2011, the yield broke out of a 30-year downtrend, but Donald Trump managed to put that genie back into the bottle in keeping the yield steady. I was like, no, that's not 2021. 2021 was the yield actually broke out. I think it was on 2018 or 2019 before COVID. So what I mean by that is that if there is lack of appetite on the treasuries, the Fed can always monetize with quantitative easing. And inflation is again, they can suppress the inflation measures, and with the substitution effect with the banana over Apple. And I'm a CFA, so I read it all through already 10 years ago. I don't put much faith into these numbers. They can have the substitution of Apple versus banana, or they can have the productivity effect of the computer is 10 times faster than it was 20 years ago, so computer is justified to be costing 10 times more, but they don't talk about you got 10 times computing power, but your computer is not faster because the applications are running so much slower, demand a lot more horsepower to manage. So I don't subscribe to the Armageddon of 33 trillion of debt is going to bankrupt. Like, this is all fiat since 1913, Jekyll Island, right? The Fed can just print a limited amount of money, and so there's, and in fact, what you want to worry about is what I call the musical chair, in that all these fiats are synthetic and maybe are artificial, they're abstract, and that is very clear that people are hoarding for. I mean, we're still getting this sort of a this leveraging effect. That's why the dollar went up in the last few days. Yeah. But over time, as the time go by, the rich and powerful is going to start grabbing all the chairs. And when I said that musical chairs, the guys are standing and dancing are the dollar holders that eventually they're like, there's nothing to be had, right? I can still buy a Monet for $1 billion, but I'm talking about real tangible assets and farms, which the Soros and the Amazons, they're buying the farms, the buildings, the infrastructures, this S&P 500, of which the cartels own 90% already. So I don't subscribe to like doom and gloom's happening. It's going to be another 2009. No, they already own 90% of everything. So how can they go down? And you can see the volatility. Like, for example, the Korean market was down 25% in 3 days from the announcement of the war. But yet you see the Nikkei, you see the S&P 500 was down like 1.5%. I know. I mean, Ron, you and I lived like the old days of 1999 financial crisis, right? And the 2009 mortgage crisis. I mean, by and large, this in terms of magnitude, this is like multiple fold of what has happened back 10 years ago and 25 years ago. And back then you saw like the market was down 5%, limit down 7% down, right? What you see today is almost like the discovery process all and gone. And the reason is, you know, the monopoly money, the casino is only 95% of the chips. So that 5% oscillating back and forth it's not going to have much of an effect.
Yeah. And you see the cartels, the ultra wealthy. When you talk about this musical chairs, I want to ask you this, because what I envisioned as you explain that is that they're all trading their monopoly money, their fiat money, for essentially for real assets, like you said, land, farms, stocks that own real assets, gold, silver, that type of thing, while the rest of the people are out there kind of slaving away every day, earning that monopoly money, just trying to use it to survive. Is that a good accurate synopsis?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you're the king. Let's talk about the king and the peasants. I think that's an analogy that we have drawn upon a few times in the past. If you're the king, right, or you can watch the movie like Japanese Emperor or the Turkish Empire or Mongolian Empire, or even the Russian Empire.
Yeah.
So they have to outreach to new frontiers.
Yeah.
Like let's think about it for a bit. Like, how is the wealth of the king measured, right? Because the currency has got the king's head on it. Like, so obviously it's not measured by the dollars, by the amount of fiats that's like paper, because they can just print at will. Like before it's a lot more even harder, because the king have to circulate something of value as a currency, like a copper or something, and they try to chip the edges and try to make it do. And eventually the kingdom fails because they overexerted themselves. And people rebel because the kingdom doesn't collect enough gold and silver to maintain its status quo. But what you have today is fiats. People are so godly accepting fiats because we've all been brainwashed. Even my mother, right, cannot believe the dollar is worth nothing. So people have been brainwashed so much. But let's think about it, and which is going to go back to the topic of the war that I like to expand it up on a little bit, because I'm in Egypt right now. I was just in the United States. I was in Asia. I've been traveling around the world in the last couple of months. If you go back to the story of the tale of a king again, let's think about it, right? Like, what is a king got to be in control of? There are two things. One is all the districts and all the satellites and all the frontiers have to accept the king's money. And so that is the dollar. And the other thing is the king has got to have enough military presence to exert this influence to the disobedient. And that's exactly what's happening is the king is controlled the printing press. I mean, like Elon Musk, he discovered 14 printing machines, and the king has a couple of them stashed in the back room, and just being printing on the daily basis to buy the S&P 500. So the king has the printing press; they don't worry about too much. And the king so what the king is doing today, just to tie everything together, is this is not about Israel wagging the dog in the United States, it being a tail wagging the head. This is about proxies that the king is deploying. One is the world's biggest superpower, and so that is the military hammer. Yeah. And then the other one is in order to bulletproof the king's currency, which is fiat and abstract. Now they're going to roll out this digital currency, of which then if you don't comply, you'll be shut off, literally. Right. So this digital currency has to be all contagion. And therefore, that's why they're going after the Middle East, because they control all the oil. Wow. And oil is outside of... Oil can be used as the currency as its own ecosystem as a procurement, right? Oil can transact with food, metals, land, and everything. So you cannot have the king cannot entertain the possibility of a competing currency. So I'm not talking about BRICS per se, but you certainly don't want to be having a competing currency that's being backed by real assets, which is oil. And so therefore, is there any surprise that Libya and Venezuela and I mean Turkey doesn't need to be worried about being bombed because there's no oil in Turkey. If I were anybody, I'd be worried about South Africa a little more because South Africa has all the exotics and all goodies there. But it's all about oil. It's all about oil. And so Israel, it serves Israeli no purpose whatsoever to be bombed. Like my brother-in-law is Jewish, right? So he doesn't approve what's happening. Like Tel Aviv, entire Israel is being leveled right now. But it's not Israel's say. It's not United States say, or it's not Netanyahu or any particular individual say. They're all the different pieces that is reporting to the king. And the king's mandate is exert two fronts. Mandate is currency as universal money, and cannot have another sound money to be backed by oil. And then the other important thing is to have the hammer, which is the U.S. military. Yeah. So that is overall gaining mind. It's like this thing doesn't serve Israel any purpose, and the existence of Israel is to disturb the Middle East. And now that game is complete. It's almost like the king is saying, you know what, Israel, it can be sacrificed so long as we achieve our objective, which is to be controlling the entire Arabian Peninsula of all the oil production.
Of all the oil. Yeah. And like, I think I understand what the petrodollar is and kind of the history of that. This, in a nutshell, what you're saying is essentially about the petrodollar, right? The U.S. dollar since what, 1974, mid 70s. Do you agree with that it's essentially to a large extent been backed by oil, and if that's at risk?
It's not just petrodollar. Petrodollar is not going to be at risk. The dollar is never going to crash. If you think the dollar is a liability to the U.S. government, of which the government is just a siphon of people's resources, at least have somebody you can go to, like the euro, which doesn't even have doesn't even have the go-to place. It's not even sovereign. So the dollar, so therefore, think of the dollar and your euro and the yen and Taiwanese dollar and all these fiats, right? Korean won, and to some extent, so think of this almost like a provincial money. Kind of like the Japanese managing the Manchuria, and you print the Manchuria money. So it's a paper with the Manchuria head versus the Japanese emperor's head. It doesn't make any difference. So long as it's fiat, right? So long as it reports to the same agency. So it's a Bank of International Settlement. The Central Bank of Japan is no different from Central Bank of Egypt versus Canada versus Australia versus they're all one and the same. But eventually the king of fiat, they're all fiat. So the king is tolerable to having regional press just to make a peace with the original people, because the farmers, like, they don't want to be accepting somebody different color or race or religion on their paper, which is fine with the king. What the king cannot tolerate is another competing currency that can be circulated with real assets to be exchanged. So I would not call necessarily a petrodollar. Like the dollar is not linked to petrol per se. Is that the petrol cannot be linked to anything else. Like the petrol could be linked to euro, which is fine, or anything else, but not to somebody who does not obey to the king.
Yeah. So all the fiat currencies, maybe
one the same.
And they're based on power, right? Who has the power? Because they're make believe, they're paper. Fiat currency is.
They all report to the same boss. It's the king.
The king,
the emperor.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
They all report to the king. All the regional central bankers, all the central bankers around the world have to be approved by the king to be appointed.
So all this news that we're being fed about these massive, like, geopolitical turmoil in the world, Russia with Ukraine, the United States and Iran, how serious is it? Are we really in a period of like risk or geopolitical? How big of a deal is all this?
Yeah, I mean, there are only 3 or 4 pieces left, and there is a stated timeline to achieve the WEF 2030 agenda. So the time is running out for 3.5 years, and I don't know why the timing is the way it is. Maybe because the technology is being developed to deploy the CBDC or whatever. The alien is coming soon, right? So the boss got to report to the alien that's coming on this report card. I don't know, but they have a timeline they got to execute, and there's only 3 or 4 missing pieces left to create this hegemony of CBDC, of the king controlling the power and the money, to have a bulletproof system. And the guys that left are China, Ukraine, and some of the remaining. China, Russia, and some of the oil remaining countries that are. I think there's only one left, which is Iran. I can't remember, I got a little worked out a little bit and a little high blood pressure. So right now what they're doing is in terms of how serious the matters are.
Yeah.
Look, only if you look at for the macro theme, I mean, you're talking like what 10,000 people had died. I mean, if you look at fentanyl overdose in the United States alone, is hundreds of thousands a year. So 10,000 people died in the corner, nobody cares. It's not really a big matter. I think the concern of the market in the short term is whether there's going to be oil flow from the Strait of Hormuz, and also that if the Iranian oil fields will be attacked because if that were to happen, then surely Iran is going to retaliate and go after Saudi Arabia's oil fields. So which means that will be a permanent impairment of the 20% of the production, right, rather than a temporary suspension.
Right.
So that is a concern for the market right now. I follow Donald Trump for 5 years. I'm not like his biggest fan, but then you pick it's Sophie's choice, right? I don't believe that he's into genocide and killing people. He's just a deal maker. So he thought that it's going to be a 4-day affair. And it seemed like he is looking for an off-ramp. However, he's got to do that very, very soon within the next 2 weeks, because he doesn't have a say. Like his power to call the shots is getting diminished. Even if you call a ceasefire today, it doesn't guarantee that Israel will not continue to fire. And it would also not guarantee that the Iranian will not retaliate in kind. So Trump has got to act very, very quickly to call a halt and to use whatever leverage he has remaining. And while maybe even sacrificing his tenure or his legacy, he's got to put a stop to this to the best way he can. Otherwise, the potential risk as the next one is the crossfire of oil infrastructure, which would be permanent impairment, and that's going to set oil permanently over $100. And the second potential problematic is that like I said, the king is happy to erase the current Iran from the face of the earth by nuclear as a possibility, because like I said, right, because Iran is around 4 million barrels a day, so that's like 5% of the total oil production overall, and that's maybe 10% of the entire world's reserve. That's great, because the king will have just eliminated what he sees as rebel, and once the people gets erased in Iran, and then the king can wait for 10, 20 years. That's okay until the nuclear waste radiation gets leveled down, and then the king can take the time. The king's been around for 500 years. So the king can then step in at the right time 20, 30, 50 years from now. So Israel, it's not Israel, let me be clear.
Right.
Because it's not about Israeli people or Israel as a nation, but the king has no problem at all to nuke Iran. And in fact, they're looking for a way to do that. Donald Trump still has some say in stopping that, but quickly that power is getting eroded. Yeah. So the situation is containable right now, and Trump is looking for an off-ramp because things didn't go according to plan to have this thing settled in 4 days. But things can go out of hand very, very quickly, as the king might instruct very soon to nuke Iran.
So if we consider everything that we've discussed so far within the context of what you're describing, if we think about, let's focus on silver. Yes. 5 years from now, you and I'm down here in the basement, you're traveling the world still, and we're talking about silver 5 years from now. From a nominal basis, I think we don't really know where the price will be. But from a real basis, like you talked about earlier, excuse me, that silver for hundreds of years has bought like a really nice meal. Where will silver be within that context? Will silver be more valuable in your mind, less valuable? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Ron, like I said, I've been a silver bought for more than 25 years. It's longer than I like to admit. And I've read the Silver Institute forecast on the supply and demand, all the industrial things going to go. So you and I talked about it's never the industrial that's going to drive the market. It's always the speculative.
Yeah.
And for oil, I think the oil at around 90, that's when the speculative money started coming in. Mm-hmm. And for silver, it's around 90 that the spec money started coming in quartz. Yeah. Nobody had the crystal ball what's going to happen 2 years from now because nobody knows. Right. But interestingly, if you look at the competing asset classes to metals, to gold and silver, and so you can look at oil as one, and that's why oil has almost doubled in the last 3 months. Intrinsically, war or not, oil is very undervalued, even though there's advent of electricity. But then with the creation of AI, it's going to need energy, which is oil. So I think oil is going to be trading close to $100, regardless of the outcome of the war, just from an inflation-adjusted basis. Remember that historically speaking, the last 200 years, an ounce of gold buys 10 barrels of oil. So with that logic, today is a $5,000 gold. You ought to be able to buy 500 barrels so 50 barrels 50 barrels of oil, and yet right now you can buy 500, right? Yeah. Is that right? Like the math doesn't add up. So oil is extremely undervalued. And then if you look, so to answer your question on silver, as I mentioned to you, silver is a little frothy. And then if you look at the prices of grain and natural gas, they're still at decade-long low prices. So you're not looking like a crazy hyperinflation, everybody ducking for cover, and people losing faith of let's not go to this gold bug world. If you look at this world as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're not like going into the store and give a $50 bill, and the guys look at it and say, you know what, the war is hyperinflating. I choose not to accept the dollar. And if you look at countries like Turkey and Lebanon, and these people are happy to accept their local fiats, even though it's inflating like 10% a day. So like we're not like seeing this world of hyperinflating. People lose faith of the fiats, and then people rejecting local currencies in favor of anything tangible. This is not like I'm looking at it around like this is not what's happening. Right. So like we're not into this doom and gloom that everybody's hoarding gold and silver. This is not it. Yeah. And so consequently, I am not super bullish on silver, but things can go wrong. So my take on silver is 70 is the low 70s. Mm-hmm. The 200 moving average of silver right now is the 50s. So I don't think it's going to go out of the 50s. And 200 moving average for gold is 4,000. I don't think gold is going to go back to low 4,000. So I think in a scenario, likely scenario is gold is gonna bottom in the next few days after the Fed announces interest rate decision. But the fundamental for silver is going to get stronger because of the war and the printing. Mm-hmm. And so the gold should stay above the 50-day moving average at around 5,000, and it's steadily inching, breaking out of 5,400 to 6,000 this year. Yeah. And then silver is going to hover around low 70s to mid 90s this year, mm-hmm. and then early next year it can go a false breakdown back to around maybe low 70s or 60s when gold is 6,000, and then it's going to take that dip, right? And then it's going to take its breakout to over 100. But I do not, on record, anticipate gold taking out $100 this year based on the pattern of 2011 and just based on what I see on the street. I don't think average Joe has no appetite buying silver at $80 an ounce. I don't see that. No. I don't see that. Yeah.
And do you agree with this idea that it's healthy in any market for a period of consolidation? I know people in the silver world just want it to go up all the time. And I think we all do, right? But we also have to be realistic that kind of consolidation period.
You know what, Ron, it's not about, if you look at the market, if you look at the market as a whole, we've been quite successful trading. After reading the book, I think I shared with you Conversation with God. I have we did tremendous well at Oracle Commodity Holdings. We made millions of dollars in the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the Oracle is trading on the TSXV Venture. The symbol is ORCL. Okay. Is that you gotta sort of looking at as an observer of any particular market, silver as a whole. It's all in the end about supply and demand. Yeah. So then if you to dissect. Okay, so Ron, let me just dissect the silver market, the buyers and the sellers. Silver buyers, 80% that is industrial buyers. Mm-hmm. And I don't see a surge in silver purchasing because, as I mentioned, there's a population collapse and silver at $80, which was $30 only only 6 months ago. So people are going to start looking for substitutions. They're just going to do industrial demand for silver is going to level around here or maybe go less. So I don't see a rally in silver because of industrial demand. So then you can take that. So these 70% of the buyer of silver is going to be not going to play a factor, right? Okay. So then if you look at that 20% of the people that are buying silver, right? Like, is there enough appetite to drive that silver price to over 100 from this set of buyers? My answer is indeterminate. My answer is to be determined. I am not convinced. Meaning that the mom and pops like you and I, we're not going to move the needle. So the only other guys that can move the needle on silver are the guys that are the Jeff Bezos, the Koch brothers, the Zeras, the Elon Musks. Mm-hmm. Well, some of these people got burned. They got it in silver at 80 and they got burned at 120, right? First of all. The people who are after the physicals, right now, silver may be still a small market. Maybe people might still prefer gold. And there's some people never going to get into silver because silver market is just too small. It's too small to entertain. So I don't see all of a sudden billions of dollars that's going to be able to take silver to the next level. There potentially be more money into gold because gold's rally is being a lot more steady. So I can see a case for gold to continue to go up. And in the times of war and uncertainties I mentioned, they don't go like, oh my God, there's a war tomorrow, I'm going to go to buy silver. They're going to buy gold. They're not going to buy silver. So I think so I don't see that surge in silver that you're going to need something around $10 to $20 billion going after silver. There's a lot of paper trading on COMEX, certainly more than the $1 billion. Like on the big days, you're seeing enough contracts in a day trading over 1 billion ounces, which means the entire production of silver is trading on a day on paper. And also, I think that to back up what I was saying is you see a very dramatic decline in the paper market's volume. So that means that there is not a lot of frothy, speculative interest in silver. I don't see that happening in the short-term horizon until gold takes out its previous high of 6,000. Exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened back in 2011. That gold continued to inch up and eventually take out what it was in May of 2021. About 8 months later, and silver didn't break out until gold took out its previous high. So, but when I mean silver's previous high, I'm not talking about 120. I'm talking 100. Because as I mentioned to you, between 100 and 120 was manufactured by the cartels. So overall, I'm not saying healthy or not healthy. I'm just looking at supply and demand for gold and silver. Who is buying and who is selling, right? And look, for the sellers, Ron, my view on that is there is a lot of silver has been hoarded. Above ground inventory of silver investment, like bars, we don't know. It could be billions of ounces. That's what the Infinite Intelligence, if you ask the question, they're telling me. It's just that the clearing price is not at 100. I'm looking at about maybe 150 to 300. So when the price gets to 150 to 300, you're gonna see volume coming up. You're gonna see physical coming out of the market. But right now, there's not in terms of war to have that enough physical demand to come up. Look, hunting for silver. But until it happens, you're gonna see the consolidation between 65 to 90. And one more point I want to expand upon a bit, which is crypto. I watched crypto when it was $15 an ounce, when gold was around 500. So coincidentally, on a per gram basis, gold and crypto is trading at the same time. And but long and short, there's a lot of paper just surfaced that is actually Jeffrey Epstein, which is a agent to the Rothschilds, and which controls the central banks. And he's actually the creator, working with MIT. That they're the founders of Bitcoins, and papers show that discussion on that actually started 2003, 2004, years before Bitcoins was actually created. And so I think that Bitcoins has plateaued somewhat in these levels, and that would be a good news, because then there's quite a bit of money that's supposed to invest in crypto. So I will urge that people are investing in crypto, now's the time to rotate back to gold and silver after it made such handsome gains.
Yeah.
And the reason for the existence of crypto, really quickly in just 3 minutes, is not like the purpose of crypto and blockchain because of integrity and technology. It's like, Ron, it's not like there is a glaring issue with fiat. Like the SWIFT system kind of works, being band-aided. Like 30 years ago, when I went to high school in UK, when my father tried to wire me money in 1985, 40 years ago, like sometimes SWIFT get lost, so it take 4 days from Taiwan to England. But now, like Ron, SWIFT works. Like you wire money today, you're gonna get it tomorrow anywhere in the world. So the SWIFT system works, and it's not like you're getting a $100 bill from your ATM from Wells Fargo, and you try to take the $100 and to buy some drinks at the bar, and then the bartenders sort of check the machine, check the $100 bill under some fluorescent thing. It's always a counterfeit, right? The fiat system is very sound. Yeah. So there's no reason to be having cryptos. Like it's not like the world is being ran through with the counterfeits. There's no such thing. The reason for crypto are twofold. Let me share with you. One is to divert people's buying power from the S&P 500, from the real assets, which is the equity market. And that's why that enabled the king to amass 90% of the S&P. That's why you're advertising this crypto, just like 25 years ago, people say put 80% in bonds, 20% in equity. Again, that's just another talking points to try to get you away from equities but into bonds, which is synthetic, which is artificial. So that they try to create another asset class, try to suck the buying power away from the peasants into something that the king creates and prints, rather than something that the king just cannot print, of which the king is buying and hoarding. So that's the reason number one, to try to get people shy away from buying gold and silver and equities and anything else, but into cryptos. And then the other reason the cryptos were invented, as I witnessed traveling in Asia and elsewhere, is to circumvent the KYC. This is not, and what I mean by that is, Ron, in Thailand, we're seeing an unprecedented amount of investment from what I believe is the Jewish and Israel into building skyscrapers, modern skyscrapers, 100, 200, 150 floors, incredible development in Thailand right now. Wow. But there's a concern in Thailand in that a lot of money were converted from crypto. We're not talking like 50,000, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in crypto converted into local Thai fiat currencies in turn. They were buying skyscrapers and building constructions and buying assets in companies. So what's happened is crypto is another invention by the king to conquer the provincial areas that don't like the king. So what I mean by that, the king cannot print some king's currency and go to Far East to buy some assets because the Far East doesn't recognize it, don't like the king, right? Right. So what the king is doing is creating another neutral currency, a technology called breakthrough currency. So what essentially is doing that, if you were to take $100 billion into Taiwan, for example, and say, I want to buy Taipei 101, which is exactly what's happening in Thailand. The Taiwan bank is going to say, where do you get money from? What is your business model? How can you generate this money? It's going to be a whole bunch of KYCs. But that money, 100 billion, is literally the king printed out of thin air yesterday, literally. Right. Yeah. They have no issue doing that with S&P 500 because nobody is going to dare audit BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. None of those are in existence. If you watch the history of Vanguard, the video is still on YouTube. Back in the early 90s, Vanguard said we have a very humble beginning. We are the founders of hard working class. The asset under management of Vanguard when it's created was like $2 billion. And now it's $2 trillion. Does somebody dare to ask where does money come from? It's being printed, okay? From Wells Fargo as a loan or as whatever. But you cannot get away with that from a bank or trying to buy something in Malaysia per se, because the Malaysia say, okay, your business is what, and where's your money come from? $100 billion. You're gonna see an audit trail of all your monthly statements from the last 3 years, and they're gonna ask you why you got this money from. Oh, but you cannot say, well, the king just printed $100 billion to my account and I can take it back. They cannot do that. So what they're doing today is they say that, oh, I'm an investor of crypto, and I bought crypto was $15, and look, now crypto is 100,000. So I got all this money, so I'm ready to exchange fiat for Thai currency to buy. The Thai people are reluctantly getting away with it, right? But now they're in the front press saying that these cryptos are completely unregulated, never KYC verified, and there are hordes of of these cryptos coming in, invading these Far East countries, and they're buying pertinent, critical, essential assets in these countries. And so I'm going back. One is divert the real asset purchases, and the other one is to go in these Far East countries that have not 100% enrolled into the King's Kingdom, and that as a vehicle for them to start grabbing assets.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. And like you said, right, it's a neutral currency that isn't, necessarily.
Yeah, a whiz kid with a Lamborghini and come up with with the Prada sunglasses, flashy, come in and drop $100 million of crypto, right? And then you can imagine the face of these banks sitting there is like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how can I see these guys? And then the guys just say, I've made crypto money, right? So I think that is a solution, a band-aid temporarily, but people are catching up to it. And now with this Epstein leakage, and that the money was created by the king, literally, it's just another currency. It's another currency to conquer the world. And so I see the demand for currency for cryptos to diminish. But not to say that crypto is going to crash, because remember, the king can continue to print. It's just a different. It's a laptop, right? It's a Dell versus HP, literally, and it's a software program. It's literally a software program. Imagine when you're playing the Monopoly Money or King of the Throne on a PC. That is what the king is doing. They're literally just printing. They're at the casino, and that's what they think about. They're just a casino. It's just different casino. There. So maybe the Thai people don't like to play at the win, right? So the Thai people can go with Bellagio. But it's the same. It's the same coin. It's absolutely the same coin.
Yeah. Wild. Thank you, John. You've given some really keen insights into not just the precious metals world, but kind of how the world works. And,
it's not about Israelis wagging the tail of the United States. It's the same. Everybody's reporting to the king. Epstein report to the king. All the Senate, Congress, the president report to the king. All the Japanese, and then even further, the king 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, started this process, right? So they actually incited and created Marxism and communism, and to conquer the Russians. So the king actually financed and fostered Marx and Mao Zedong and Marx and Lenin. All these are agents of the king, and to really create the kingdom. And now, but you have a couple of defiant peasants, Xi Jinping and Putin, and these are not coming from the king, right? And so they're defiant, and let's see how it's going to play out.
It's going to be interesting. Let me one last question about precious metals. Can people protect themselves from the king by holding physical gold and silver, in your opinion?
Not only can they do that, they have to do it. And so 3 years ago, I told my mom we started buying gold at 1800. I said we have never been buying for 15 years the first time, and then we started, and then in May of last year, just about a year ago, I went on Twitter and a number of broadcasts say this is the time to buy silver. I believe I was on the show. I said it's better to buy silver at 36 in June to buy at 35, because every time when silver broke out $35, it go to $50, right away. But sure enough, even though it didn't go right away last July because it's the summer, but in September it went it went. So silver, it's going to minimum for silver, like bottom of silver is 70. So it's not too late. You have to buy silver, not ETFs, not Perth Mint papers, not these gold certificates to circumvent the digital currency. Again, Ron, there is too much fiat floating around. The king has printed too much money. So the king is getting very visibly annoyed. And the way to handicap people is this 15-minute cities. The king don't want to see anybody meddling with the king's business when the king is vacationing in Santorini or Cape Town in South Africa or Times Square in New York. The king doesn't want to see the peasants, okay? They don't want to deal with the peasants. But they cannot stop doing that anymore because middle class is getting very healthy. So the way to do that is creating this Michelin's club, exclusive club, to exclude the regular peasants. And the way to do that is a combination of digital currency, carbon credits, and social credit system, which is being practiced in the Brit ID system. So if you were to jaywalk, right, you cannot travel, period. And then if you were to say something foul, like in England, you got arrested if you do something on Facebook. And if you were to do too much traveling, or if the king doesn't want you to do, then you consume a carbon credit, which is a ton a year, 1,000 kilos. A trans-Pacific flight from Asia to New York is 1,000 kilos, as I mentioned to you multiple times. If we were to make a flight from Orion to North America, then you'd be eating tofu for the rest of the year. Right. And then you cannot go on a ride on a PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, to Costco in San Diego to buy a can of Coca-Cola when there is a Costco next to you. This is coming. So the combination of digital currency, social credit system, and the carbon credit will restrict your movement to handicap you. And that's happening by 2030. And the way to get around that, unfortunately, you cannot say, oh, you know what, my grandma stays home all day. I would just take my grandma's phone, right, to buy my steak. No. Unfortunately, like I said, nowadays, I'm a Taiwanese national. All the systems, you remember, like you go to Thailand, United States, they don't even check your passport anymore. They don't check your boarding pass. You stay in front of a computer, a screen, and then the light turns green. No passport checking. They're all the same machines by the ALWEF. It's identical machines anywhere around the world. You say, well, how do you get my data? Well, you've been doing your fingerprinting and iris checking for how long? For almost 10 years. So the entire system is all integrated in one database. And that in the future, it's not just digital wallet. Like to buy a gas, you have to scan your iris. So you have to literally go back to that Mission Impossible and do, or you have to face it maybe somewhere, some sort of a face-off with the Jack Nicklaus and the John Travolta. Like you had to wear some mask, try to circumvent that. Or the alternative is the black market, which is a silver coin. Because imagine if you do the gas station, you're on the top of your gas, and then you try to stick your face in front of that screen, and they say, sorry, you can't buy gas anymore.
No gas.
You know what? You get that coin to the guy to the Patel, right, sitting at the cashier, and Mr. Patel is gonna wow, silver coin, that's fancy, and Patel is gonna take that coin happily because Patel can take that coin and Patel can buy his chicken shawarma, right? Because he's exceeded his chicken credit. And the good meal, and the chicken vendor can take that and do something else, travel to see his family in Vietnam. So that's become the black market. And that is going to happen. And that is the reason, right, as I mentioned to you before, time and again, for more than a year, the ascendance of gold's rally and so is rally. It's not to do with inflation. It's not to do with the fiat. People are like running hyperinflation, or people lost confidence in fiat. It's like the middle class and the peasants have no money. They don't care, right? The dollar or something. It's not like lose confidence, but the rally of gold from 1,800 to 5,000 is direct purchase by the well-to-dos, by the centi-billionaires, by the billionaires, by the Zeras, the Koch brothers, the Xi Jinpings, the Modis, all these heirs of legacy money,
right? And
to preserve their living standards, right? So it's not like they're making these purchases and go like, oh my God, my account went up $1 billion today. No, it's to preserve their living standards. What I mean by that is that it's not, Ron, for you, it's not like I want to be able to like buy. It's not like I'm making enough money, so today I'm drinking Johnny Walker Red Label. I'm going to upgrade that to Johnny Walker Blue Label. It's the fact that you should be able to, you can buy Johnny Walker at all. So for the people that are buying the coins today, you don't want to be looking at, okay, I'm making this much money, and then some gold bucks are saying when silver go to 100, I'm going to sell. That's not the way you look at it. It's rather you're holding these coins for the rainy day in case something happened, like Project Blue, which I think there's some credence to that. One day they're going to have projectiles, and all this AI are so real, you cannot tell the difference real versus not. You're going to have some hologram looking at alien invasion. They're going to shut down all this banking system, shut down the power. 10 days later, all your balances, accounts, balances, computers, internet, complete total shutdown. You end up, imagine if you one day you log into your system, okay, with your password, and then you're staring at a blank screen. Yeah. Just imagine that one day for a minute. And it's like, John, that's not possible. Let's think about it, okay, Ron? You have a Malaysian 5573 that disappeared, 5-6 years ago? You're like, how is that even possible? Like, you go to FlightWare, right? You should try exactly. Like, how is it impossible that somebody make a story say the alien infiltrated remember, all this money is a digital, it's a digit on a computer screen. It's no different from your writing software. It's fast software. So who is it to stop an alien from attacking the Fed computer and erase everybody's account balances.
Yeah.
If you say, oh, that's impossible, well, suppose it is, then what are you going to do about it? So in case that happens, then what is your contingency plan? Like, Ron, it's not your first time you log into a computer or Citibank and Citibank say you're using maintenance, right? You're thinking, wow, for a minute, is my money still there? And who's keeping track of money? Who's keeping track of my money? It's the king who's keeping track of my money, right? Well, so if the king doesn't like to have the money, the king just say, you know what? There is a security breach. Your money's gone. And if you think about it more, if you think of companies like Cloudflare, right? All these Cloudflare, these protection companies, essentially the king has built a layer on top of the internet. So that internet right now is distributed. The king doesn't control the internet because the internet is distributed. You can have a server hosted here and there that's connected to the internet that's controlled by nobody. But the king has built a layer on top of that for the sake, in the name of security, in the name of denial of service attack. So imagine if the king just turn off that layer, then all the services will be denied. That is happening, Ron. So not only can the king shut off electricity, the king actually can shut off internet. Not the actual internet per se, but the access to the underlying internet through this protection layer of security layer that they're supposed to protect you from.
Yeah, the cloud. Yeah. So it's a good idea. It's a good idea to hold on to silver.
It's not a good idea. It's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential. And I will recommend you buy numismatics, the silver coins. And the way I came to that is kind of like Rolex versus steel. The premium between the base physical metal and the numismatics, the margin was continued to widen. It's kind of like Rolex, Rolex just the pot of steel, right? But a Rolex watch itself is worth $3,000. So silver itself is say $100 an ounce, but the numismatics is going to worth a lot more. The margins, the spread is going to widen. And the reason for that is the king just cannot right now stop you by buying silver and gold, because then that's going to create a buying frenzy. This rumor is going to circulate. Gold is going to be banned like it was 1971. But rather what they're doing, which is what they started to do already, is they're just going to throttle and ration the supply of physical to the mint. So what is the mint good for if they cannot get if they don't have the bullions to mint? So that's going to happen every year. You're going to say, well, by January, U.S. Mint run out of supply because of logistics and whatever, right? So, and then also once the CBDC is instituted, you're screwed, you're fucked, right? Because the king can easily track who are the mints, right? So you cannot buy from Kitco. Like the Kitco would just be like everybody has a quota on how much they can buy, and so you're screwed. You're screwed. Yeah. And if you say, you know what, I am not going to subscribe to the king's fiat system. Well, unfortunately, if you were to tabulate the countries like countries like UK and EU, Canada, 50% of the employment is payroll as government. So they will just, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to send you a link, right, which is a tag, a string by email, and you have to open a digital wallet in order to collect. Worse yet, Ron, when the time is ready to pay your taxes, real estate taxes, income taxes, capital gains taxes, and they are going to force you to pay through digital wallet. And if you don't pay, it's very easy. They know where you work. They know where your assets are. They will just foreclose it. So there's no way you can get around. The only way is to get gold right now, get gold and silver, and that's why the Trump is so eager to finish up Iran and anybody who can produce tangible asset to compete with the king's fiat. So the next one I'll be worried about will be South Africa, because South Africa is the largest gold reserves, and a lot of the exotics, trace minerals, critical minerals, platinum, coal. Like South Africa should be very worried.
Yeah. So if I shift gears to because I also like to follow the mining sector as well. And you're the CEO of Silver Elephant Mining. Is there a place when it comes to protecting ourselves? Like I own a lot of the development stage silver companies, including Silver Elephant Mining. Is Silver Elephant has a huge silver deposit in Bolivia. Is that another avenue for people to look at in terms of protecting themselves?
Yes. Well, let me switch because on my computer's out of power. I'm just in a hotel here in Egypt, transit back to Asia. The answer is silver elephant is potential vehicle, but what you want to look at, there's a difference between silver mining company and gold and silver. It's kind of like a Tesla car. You're buying a Tesla auto versus buying Tesla, the company, right?
Right.
And obviously, when you buy silver mining company is being promoted as a leveraged play on silver. So let me, Ron, explain really quickly sort of what the appeal for mining companies are for some of these new people that are maybe into the market, into mining space. Yep. So imagine right now, say a silver producer today, say First Majestics or whatever, they're only started to produce cash flow. Let's just say that the company's, say Silver Elephant is mining 1 million ounces a year of silver at, say, $99 per ounce of cost. So at $100 silver, then the profit will be 1 million ounce times $1 profit, right? Because price is 100 and cost is $99 to dig out of the ground and process it. So it's not very sexy, like the profit's $1. But imagine silver went from 100 to 110. So people who bought silver made 10% on paper. Their paper gain, like bought at 100 and sell at 110. They made $10. So it made 10%. But for Silver Elephant, for example, hypothetically speaking, all of a sudden, instead of making $1 million, a million ounces of silver at 110, they're making $11 per ounce. So the net income went up 10 times from $1 million to $10 million. So this is a storyline, Ron. But keep in mind, there's a lot of downfall, right? For example, mining companies is a burning stick because the reserves gets depleted as the time goes on. So the production is not perpetual. And also you have to community deal with the geopolitical risk, and there's also the costs keep rising because as silver prices go up, well, the trucker is going to ask for a raise, and the fuel is going to go up. So your cost is not fixed at $99. It's going to go up along with the silver price. Yeah. And as you make more money, it doesn't mean that 11 million is going to go directly to the coffer, right? And then the government is going to raise taxes and royalties and all these different things. The community want a piece, so your community payment go up. So you got to be a little bit careful with the timing of. Not to mention too, on the flip side of the coin, right? If silver will go from 100 to 90, you lose 10%. But if silver went from 100 to 90, and if Silver Elephant has a lot of bank loan in the bank, all of a sudden you went from making $1 million to losing 10 million. So you can actually lose the money to the bank potentially. So you see, there's a lot of downfall. So I would not put, like, given what we are, I'm not necessarily putting a lot of basket. Right now, it's about a wealth preservation. It's not about like putting all money in the bank. So I will put gold and silver as cash. So you want to have your net worth, say $1 million. You want to have $200,000 in silver and gold coins. This is like, you know what, 200,000. I can get through this alien invasion. I can get through this crazy world. I'm going to come out on top, good for like 3 years without having to worry about anything. And that's good because you're going to come out on the other side. You're going to have that money to buy things. Yeah. So you want to have 20% cash, and that's gold and silver coins. And then you want to say equity and whatever else. You want to plan on real estate. You want a couple of real estates on equity, whatnot. So if I were you, I would like say 50% equity and 30% real estate and 30% in cash. Then of that 50% equity, then you can buy the Japanese market. You can buy equity market. You can buy mining shares. So this is a different asset class. But I would not put like 90% of my money in the back, especially also given this geopolitics that a government like Burkina Faso in Africa, not only do you have to worry about the government might confiscate, take away, expropriate your asset, but the government might not exist and change over tomorrow. So yes, multitude of different risk factors to take into consideration. So I would not necessarily put half my basket. Certainly, I don't do that. But I run a lot of Silver Elephant. I'm a CEO of Silver Elephant and CleanTech. So all my equities are in Silver Elephant and CleanTech. Otherwise, it's in real estate and gold and silver bullions.
Yeah. Be diversified, but there is a place for a lot of people with mining equities. John, I want to say thank you on behalf of myself and all the people out there, thousands of people that watch this interview. You have a deep understanding. You've given us some keen insights to how the world works and how precious metals fit into that? Is there anything that I forgot to ask you? Any parting words you
Yeah,
want to
just let me give a 2-minute parting words. It's 11:06.
Yeah.
We finished 11 in 2 minutes. One is that mining, especially the mining universe, is the most asymmetric market that I'm aware of. And this is talking to, I've been around for 25 years.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to my counterpart and industry peers, we sometimes talk about, do you know this company? Do you know that company? I got some shares because maybe I've been pushed to private placements, and I sometimes subscribe to some private placement that's been pushed to me by my broker. Even we scratch our heads. Like, we don't have a better win rate than anybody else because you don't know. There's so many things can go wrong, and they're hidden in closets. So even the most astute industry insiders don't have a better win rate. It's just like you can only pray that when you win, you get a big fight backer, but when you lose, at least you got a little bit of money back. So that's it's important diversification. And the other thing I want to touch briefly on, 1 more minute, is Silver Elephant, because the company is endorsed on pain and suffering. It is in production right now of areas just outside of the core. And the core is being canceled. Our mining production contract is canceled by the government. Bolivia is going through a bit of a turmoil, but a new government is being put in place. We're in discussion with them to restate our mining production contract. So the hope is still there. The discussion is active. The company is pursuing all avenues, and we remain optimistic to get our contract restated, because the contract was canceled for the reason of quote unquote illegal mining. There's some other opportunist mining companies that's kind of like that was circling our project, circling our project. So unfortunately, there is a lapse of judgment we believe by the government, and error was made. But we remain optimistic and working still overtime to get our mining contract restated, of which it has over 100 million ounces. In the meantime, the company is generating revenue of some of the areas that belongs to the company in the outskirts of the company, and is continuing to be operating in mining today.
Awesome. I'm going to pull up the company website, if that's okay, just for 1 second here. If anybody wants to head out, it is Silver ELEF, ELEF.com, correct? And you guys are traded on the TSX with the symbol ELEF, and on the OTC SILEF, and you can learn all about the company there. It's a great website. And
Ron, if like the company's market cap is around 20, and we're producing cash, we don't have debt. But if the company doesn't get the contract back in the immediate, there's no much downside. But the upside is the project, the resource is world class, over 100 million ounces. So if we manage to get our asset back, looking at some of the peer valuation, there are other trading out between $500 million to $1 billion. Yeah. So you're looking at a lot of upside, and downside is really limited. So I recommend your audience to take a look at it, and feel free to get with me. Just email info@silverelef.com, or show me a DM at my Twitter. Just Google or just go to a search on X on John Lee Silver Elephant.
Sounds good, John. Thank you so much. I can't wait till we see how this unfolds next time we speak 6 months or so from now. But on behalf of myself, and like I said, all the people out there, thousands of people who've joined us, thanks for being here, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.